Hello, Arty Peoples, and welcome to another episode of Jerry's Live. My name is Emmy Klein, and I'm your host this evening. Now, today I have a really fun show planned. It's just going to be a fun little paint-along because it's fall, and I had gotten a lot of lumpy and bumpy gourds, and I wanted to paint them all because they're a lot of fun colors, and it kind of just feels like the season. So, if you are interested in any of the products that I will be showing you today, make sure to go to the website, JerrysArtarama.com, and type in today's class code, which is JL312. So JL312, if you type that in the search bar, the teacher's cart should come up with all of the things that I'm going to be playing around with tonight. And you can check it out that way. So I really hope you guys are ready to play along with all of the painting. Now, if you are wanting to actually paint what I'm going to be painting, I do have a reference photo. Now, I posted that in our Jerry's Live Facebook group. This is the reference photo. So if you want to go check this out on the Jerry's Live Facebook group, it is free for you to join. If you have not joined already, you do have to answer that one security question, and I will probably right after the show make sure to go through and add everybody that jumps in, so you guys can check it out that way. So we are going to be painting a bunch of gourds. Actually, these gourds that I have on my desk here. These are these same ones. They still survived, with the exception of my wrinkly gourd. It's like a sad, grumpy old gourd. In the photo, nice and plump. In real life now, he's sad. But anyway, he's still kicking though. It's okay. He made it for his 15 minutes of fame on the show, right? So in the photo, though, everything is nice and fresh. I had just gotten these gourds and set them up with a couple of flowers, which were really fun. I took this photo, which is a really fun way of getting some reference photos, just putting things together, and I ended up popping it onto a little sidewalk area right outside of work here, where I had some leaves and a couple of acorns that I thought were really fun and very much fall. So just snapped a quick photo, and that's my reference. And I'm gonna kind of simplify a lot of like the background and things because I don't want to paint everything perfectly. My goal today was to have kind of a very painterly feel. And actually this was the painting that I ended up doing beforehand. So it looks very detailed, but if you actually get close to this painting, which actually, let's switch over to that overhead camera, I can show you guys a little bit of kind of what I'm talking about. So let me push this up just a little so you can see a little bit better. So yeah, it looks like it's a very detailed painting, but if I actually go up here, these flowers are just little blobs of paint. They're little dots of paint, and I'll show you guys how to do that. All the sticks and stuff over here, they're just kind of swipes of paint, and that's all it was. It's a lot of layers and a lot of different colors kind of going into where it looks like it has a lot of variation, but it's very, very simple to do, and I'm going to show you guys how to do that. So I'm also not going to start off with any kind of a sketch. I'm going to just jump straight into this painting with oil paints. Now, the stuff that I'm going to be using, other than, again, my reference photo, if you guys want to see. So that's what I'm going to be painting from. I'm going to pop that right up above. And I have a Centurion oil-primed linen canvas that's been stretched. I believe this is, what, 11 by 14. Any size will do. I just happen to crop this to be the same proportions as an 11 by 14. But like I said, I'm going to keep my reference photo just above. And again, if you want that, we can pop that over to the Jerry's Live Facebook group, and you guys can check it out. Now I'm also going to be using, these are the Lucas 1862 oils. That's all I have on my palette here. But this right here is the set of their 10 new colors that came out a bit ago. I can't remember, but we still have this set, which I love. It has a white and a black and all these really fun colors. Now if you look at my reference photo, there's a lot of greens, and I do have some purples in here, and if you look here, there's absolutely no greens and no purples. We're going to be mixing them. So I'm going to show you my favorite kind of mixes to get those really fun kind of colors. But all kinds of really good colors that are in here. It's a very specific palette, and I really actually quite love working with these. I think I even had an entire show where I swatched those, but that's what is completely up and down my palette here. So if you guys are interested in those, I'll try and keep telling you which color I'm picking up as I go. And let me actually pop these over here so I can keep them. They're in the exact same order as I have them in the little pan here, so I can just double check if you need me to. Now up at the top here, I have a couple additional colors that I wanted to pop in because I'm painting pumpkins. I cannot paint a pumpkin without a punchy orange or yellow or really bright colors. So I am actually using 2 cadmium colors here. Now if you are familiar with cadmium colors, they are a heavy metal pigment, so it can be toxic. Not can be, it is toxic. So these 2 colors are one of those, just the colors that as long as you don't get it on your skin, it just being on the palette right now, it's fine. The only way that you would get any kind of a toxicity of that being in your body is if you ingest it or if you get it all over your skin and absorb it through your skin. So just make sure if you are using cadmiums to just take the precautions. If you're a messy painter, wear gloves. I am, as it's been joked about frequently across the show, I'm freakishly clean when it comes to painting, so I'm not worried about it on my hands, but if you are a messy painter, just be careful. So that's cadmium yellow lemon, because I wanted one that's real bright and has like a kind of green tone to it, because I do have, prior to Mr. Wrinkles here, it's got a lot of that like really kind of almost green yellow tint to it, and I wanted to make sure I get a good color that has that, because this set of the new colors does have a Naples yellow, but it's still a little bit too warm. Let me push that up here. It's this one, which, yeah, of course, there's glare. And you know what? I'm going to actually just pop this here while I'm talking about it so you guys can see a little bit better. So that's that Naples yellow that I'm talking about. I do have a yellow ochre. I believe it's yellow ochre light, and then a transparent yellow. Is that yellow oxide? That's what it is. I almost said ochre. So it's a transparent yellow oxide. So that is going to be a transparent kind of yellow color, but these are yellows, but in the neutral kind of range. So I wanted a punchy yellow, you know? So that cadmium yellow, though, this one has a little bit more of that orange kind of tint to it. So that's going to be a lot more of like kind of the oh, I got a little piece of grass there. But that's going to be a lot of like the body of my pumpkin, where it's still in light, but it's not like a highlight, because that's what that kind of more feels like. Then I do have an Indian yellow. Now my Indian yellow, I just know from using it several times, it's a little bit more transparent. So if I want something that has that more, it goes towards like the reds and the deeper kind of orangey colors, I can mix these two. And since I know this is transparent, I have to mix it in a lot more of the Indian yellow than the cadmium, because that cadmium is real strong. But then the last one I have is Vermilion Light, which I do love this color. It is kind of an orangey red. Again, it's one of those, like, it just kind of follows the spectrum from a bright yellow to a more reddish kind of tone to me. So those are the colors that are on my palette. Again, I'm going to try and keep up with telling you which one I pull over and kind of keep it mixing in this area. But to start my painting, I'm going to grab, I only have 3 brushes that I'm working with today. And these are the ones that I used last time because they're still a little dirty. I didn't wash them. Don't do that. Make sure you take care of your brushes. But yeah, I'm using 2 flats and a bright, which if you guys are wondering what's the difference between a flat and a bright, because they all look flat to you, a flat has a little bit longer of a bristle, where a bright is still a flat shape, but it's just shorter. So I just have a 12, an 8 in flat, and then a 4 in bright. So those are the 3 brushes I'm going to use. Now I am going to attempt to use my big brush for as long as possible, to where I don't get stuck in noodling with all those little details. And that's a good trick if you're trying to keep it kind of painterly. That's the kind of way I like to do that. Now I am going to actually pull these up here, and I'm gonna put this is my Chelsea Classical Studio Spike Oil that's just in a brush washing kind of jar, and of course it kind of suctions down a little bit if you don't open it for a minute. So I'm going to get some solvent on my brush. Not a ton, it's not dripping or anything, but I can tell you that it's definitely on there. And I'm going to take, because the first color that I put down on there was this kind of orangey red, and that was a custom color that I mixed. Now I'm gonna actually let you guys decide, because this is entirely up to you, and you can change kind of the feel of a painting with that first color that you lay down. Now this orangey kind of color, I believe, was the transparent red oxide with a little bit of quinacridone red, so that it kind of warmed it up just a little bit, because transparent oxide, I think it's this one. Yeah, that's the transparent oxide by itself. It's kind of got an orangey tint, and I figured that would go really well with my pumpkins. And then I wanted it a little bit kind of reddish, if that makes sense. I wanted it like an orangey red, more red than orange. So I popped in a little bit of that quinacridone, but the quinacridone by itself is pretty purpley, so they kind of work together to kind of make a really fun orangey kind of base. Now I can do that for the base of my next painting, or I could go completely opposite and do like a blue. So I'm gonna let you guys tell me real quick in the comments. Let me know which color that you would like me to start with, a blue, or I can do like an orangey red. But we can walk through this process together and kind of work that way. Now the only blues that I kind of have are the very limited on that. I have the cobalt teal and I have an ice blue. Obviously the ice blue, it is like a really light, you guys can see it here in the corner. It is a really, really light blue. I cannot use that one. For the base of my painting, I need to have something that has a darker kind of mass tone. And you can see this is the cobalt teal. And yes, it is true cobalt, so it is also going to be in that kind of family of be careful with the pigment. Just don't get it on your skin. But with that, I wouldn't be using it straight out of the tube. I would make sure that I can darken that tone. So I might mix it with a little bit of black, just to kind of get a deeper kind of color. So I can do a cobalt, or I can do my orangey red. How are we looking in the comments?
Facebook is tied.
Tied? Ooh. All right, how are we doing on YouTube? Blue. Okay, blue it is. So we're gonna do a little bit of a different kind of painting. Now, let me get this kind of off with my easy wiper. So I'm gonna approach it the exact same way. The only difference now is that instead of having this kind of orangey color sparkle through, I'm gonna have a blue sparkle through, which is gonna be fun and be more kind of opposite of the oranginess of my pumpkins, which I think is gonna be lovely. So let me take this cobalt teal and a little bit of this black and mix them together for just a darker kind of tone, right? I think I'm gonna need probably more than this.
Can you squish your palette down like switch?
Pull it down.
Yeah, just like keep going. Okay.
There we go. Yeah. The only thing that's getting cut off down here is white. So, and I won't be touching that probably for a while. So what I'm gonna do is get a little bit of spike oil, because you still have to follow that fat over lean kind of rule when it comes to an working all in one go. Just because if you start with a very fatty layer, you're gonna have issues with your upper layers kind of sticking to it. And the fact that we're starting with a blue, we now have to have orange pumpkins, so we don't want a really, really, really thick paint on there. Oh, I think that's a cat hair. We're just gonna paint that in. Sorry, my cats came to work with me today. All right, so the first thing we're gonna do is slap on the color everywhere. Is there a neatness to this? No. Do I need to be precise and kind of make sure that I'm getting it perfectly. No, just slap it on there. Well, I guess I shouldn't say slap it. Brush it on there. Although, if you want to slap your paint onto your canvas, you can take a little frustrations out. Right? Do one of those.
Wear gloves.
Yes, make sure you wear gloves. Now, again, remember, I am working with a cobalt blue, so I don't want to touch this. But you guys can use any kind of blue out there. That's the cool thing about that. You can use an ultramarine. Phthalo blues are really pretty. Phthalo blues are really strong though. But again, you want to make sure that it's a nice thin layer. And you just want to get the white off the canvas, really. Just so we can tone it down. Give us a nice base. Scrub it on there, right? Happy. All right, so now I'm going to take that exact same color and I'm not going to thin it down a bunch. Make sure you keep your solvent covered as you're painting because you don't want to have a bunch of fumes. Now, again, I mixed this color, so I might have a bit of variation between what I have down here and what I'm now mixing. That's okay. It doesn't have to be perfect. But what I am going to do now is I'm going to hold my brush down here at the bottom, and usually I do this at an easel where it's face forward to me. This is on a table, so it might have a little bit of distortion. But if you guys keep that kind of the plane of the canvas exactly parallel with your face, then this would be a little less of a problem. But I'm just going to start sort of sketching general shapes of where things are, just so I can place them down. It's not perfect. It doesn't have to be perfect, because if I have something in the wrong spot, then I can just move it. And it's not like there's that pumpkin, right? That pumpkin right there, there-ish. Now, it's not perfectly in there, but I understand kind of the notes of what I'm doing. And there's just a little sliver of another pumpkin kind of popping up behind it. If you don't like that there, you can edit it out. Not a problem. Again, I'm gonna need more paint on this. I wasn't expecting to use the blue. That was a last minute decision to ask you guys, so. All right, let's just put pumpkin here, and then we have the other pumpkin is sort of here, but it's, so if I were to draw like an imaginary line in my head, kind of here and here, kind of just dividing it into those shapes, right? That pumpkin is way over here. So I'm kind of more towards the middle of this, and I know it's gonna be kind of over this way. So I drew that, it doesn't matter, but I'm gonna kind of fix that later. So there's that, and then this pumpkin kind of does come down just a little bit more. I think it's actually a lot smaller than I originally drew, so I'm just gonna kind of lower it down.
Emmy.
Yes.
Jana is on Facebook and is saying that she used oils years ago and she doesn't remember mixing solvent with the paint. Can you remind us the purpose of that?
The purpose of mixing a solvent with your paint is to just bring the fatty content down. So I can, it's now transparent. I can work on it with thinner layers, because as you're working with your oils, and this is all going to be in one sitting, so the fat over lean idea isn't going to matter as much with this painting as if you were to stop working on this and come back to it days later. And when I say fat over lean, I mean I brought solvent into my paint. That means the fatty content has been broken down a little bit. So now this is what's considered a lean layer. Because I could get a transparent layer if I were to mix an oil in with my paint instead of the solvent. But instead of bringing that fat content down, I'm adding fat to my paint. So it's not doing that lean kind of layer. Now the reason why I do a lean layer on my first one is because it kind of, in my way of explaining it, I kind of lower the pigment load on that first layer, because my pumpkins need to be orange. This is blue. If you know color theory, you mix blue and orange together, you're going to get mud. So how do I get a nice vibrant orange color when I have blue on the painting already? And I'm going to do this all in one sitting, so that's not going to be dry. So that's why I have a nice lean layer. And if I do go to lay down that orange and I notice that the blue is affecting it a little too much, I can very easily take my Easy Wiper and just kind of wipe off that lean layer, and it should still come up pretty easily. So that's why I start off with a nice thin lean layer, and then as I start working, I'm gonna build in more of just straight paint, because this still right here, this layer still has some solvent in it. Like, it's still pretty thin. It's not as thick as if I were to just take straight paint. So, and it's also kind of mixing in with what I have down here, so it's just a little way of me kind of working. Oh, and I do have, again, I think I'm bringing my cats to work with me today. It's been a cat heavy kind of week, which, in case you guys have not seen my Instagram, we found a kitten, by the way. I'm going to totally just work that one in. His name is Nugget, and he's the best little baby ever. Shout out to the animals who are loved, and now in my paintings, so.
Suzanne said it just adds texture.
It does. It does. And what do they say? That you can now authenticate my paintings because my animals are in it. All right. So this right here is that flower, because if I were to divide it in half, oh, let me make sure I'm on camera. If I were to divide that just in half down the middle, it lands almost in the middle, but it's just slightly off. So it's sort of here-ish, right? And then this blue kind of green pumpkin sits behind it, so like if I were to draw that line through that, it kind of right about here. But then like if you see here, just where that pumpkin, that dark pumpkin goes behind the orange one, it all kind of meshes together into a really dark tone. So I'm not really going to worry about that. I'm just going to kind of block that in as a dark shape, right? And I'm going to kind of cut this up and over, because that flower sits on top of that pumpkin. Because if you look back here, you can see the pumpkin go behind the flower, and then it kind of comes around. So I want to kind of keep that curve of the pumpkin there, but then my flower is going to cut in there and kind of stop that sort of shape, right? So now I'm only just drawing circles and kind of weird shapes. Like if I see that like the flowers kind of form a certain kind of almost flat shape at the top, that's why I'm drawing a flat shape. It's very simple, right? And then this last bumpy gourd is kind of over here. And again, the best part about painting pumpkins is that if you don't get them perfectly sized and perfectly placed, no one's gonna know. They're pumpkins. It's an organic thing that everyone understands what it is. I think this orange pumpkin actually does come kind of just barely in front of that one, just to give it a little bit more of a layering kind of effect. Now, I have these cute little purple flowers all over the place. I'm not going to worry about those right now. We will pop those in later. Those are just little pops of purple that I can just dab on after I've established the background. But what I'm now looking for is I'm going to grab more paint. Probably gonna have to squirt more onto my canvas here because I am grabbing all of the cobalt teal. All right, so I'm gonna grab more paint. You see how like it gets real dark here? I'm just gonna block that in. Right? Not worried about anything. I see a dark shape and I'm just gonna kind of block it in. It doesn't have to be perfect, not at all. So this gets real dark up in here, kind of carves around. I think that flower kind of, see that little chunk there? Oh, sorry, pulling off camera. I'm trying to paint and do this at the same time. So you see how like this pumpkin comes around here, it cuts over and then it comes straight up with this. There is a leaf right in the middle. I'm going to just kind of ignore that one leaf and just kind of pop that in because I can paint on top of it. Again, these are thin layers. I'm not too worried about it. And if you guys do have questions about this process, let me know. And I hope you guys are painting along because I will love to see what you guys paint. And the process, if you're going to be using orange instead, like an orangey kind of red color, or even like a burnt sienna or whatever color makes you happy, if you're starting the painting just like this, it's the exact same process. You just change the color. And then, so yeah, you see like the darks kind of over here. I'm just kind of, and because this is the background, I kind of want to push that back into dark, so I'm going to kind of darken it a little bit more than I already see. And there is a little sprig of greenery that kind of comes through. So I'm just going to kind of just indicate that it's there, you know? And the trick to getting greenery and kind of a lot of like sticks and stuff that's there that you don't want to paint every little detail, the trick to getting it kind of indicated in is not to do nice soft brush strokes. It's to kind of scrub it and flick your brush around like that. And I wasn't even looking when I was doing that, but you see how all these little brush strokes now add the texture and interest? That's what you're looking for. You don't want perfect. You want it to be kind of painterly, and you want it scrubby, and you kind of want to see those brush strokes because that's what's going to indicate all of that little, like the leaves and the stuff that's kind of around, you know? And I'm going to kind of darken just around here. That pumpkin is still there-ish. And then we're going to paint it in later. I can tell that there's a little sliver right here, and I know that that's the pumpkin. Now, again, if I forget that it's there and I paint over it, that's okay. No one's going to know. Again, I can still hear Katie go, how would they know? All right, now, I think that's about it for my sort of underpainting. Oh, I do have a bit of a shadow here and here. And then there's, I'm going to indicate there's a little stem. I almost said knobby bit. It's the same thing. The stem knobby bit of your pumpkin is right there. I got one here-ish. It kind of goes that way. And then this one, I almost forgot, is right about there. But then, this is why I picked this pumpkin, because of that stem. It has such a fun little stem. And he still has a fun little stem, but he's just wrinkly. He's just a wise old pumpkin. We can call him the Great Pumpkin, Charlie Brown. Shout out to people who know what that is. And if you don't, go watch The Great Pumpkin now. All right, so I just realized as I'm looking, because I have the camera right up, the TV screen right up over here, and I can see my painting, and it kind of almost is like stepping away from it. So if you need to step away from your painting and step back so that you can kind of see sort of the shapes and compare it to your reference photo, do that. And I realize that this is quite light over here and quite light down here. So I'm just going to kind of indicate little grassy bits and stuff by scrubbing it and giving it some texture. And over here I do want to darken this, not as much as I darkened over here, but just enough to kind of make it not come forward, right? So there's my underpainting. Nice and blue, doesn't look like anything, right? So now I'm going to take my Easy Wiper and kind of knock off this pigment on my brush because I'm going to clean it. And I forgot brush cleaner, but I'm going to use my spike oil because it's about the same, just not as strong. So that's okay. I'll use my spike oil. Just means that just means when I use my spike oil to clean my brushes, that means I'm just going to have to change my spike oil faster than I normally would want to. It's better to use a brush cleaner, but I'm still knocking off a lot of the paint on my Easy Wiper rag as opposed to putting it into my jar. So now we get to start adding in the fun colors. So I'm just going to kind of wipe this area off so you guys can still see what I'm working with here. Still using my big brush. And it's not perfectly clean, so I'm going to have a little bit of blue in there, so it's going to probably tinge my colors, but that's okay. But what I want now is there's a lot of like oranges and those warm kind of colors, and I'm going to start popping those in. So what I want to do is I'm going to start kind of pulling in the shadow colors of my pumpkins. Now, I can use this vermilion, and like I said, my brush is still dirty. That's okay. I'm kind of all right with it not being a perfectly clean vermilion. It's a little bit desaturated now because I have some blue, you know, in there. But I think I'm going to desaturate it further by adding in a little brown pink and kind of giving it almost like a rusty orange kind of color. Now, I still have solvent on my brush, but I don't want that much solvent on my brush, so I'm going to probably add in a little bit more paint on my palette so it's not broken down as much. And this is a consistency thing for me. So that kind of knowledge of what consistency you need your oil paint does come with time, but just kind of remember we already have some oil paint down on here, so if I thin this down really far, it's going to have more of a tendency to mix in with what I already have down. Now, it's going to no matter what I do because it's there and it's still wet. But if I have this paint less thinned down, then it's going to be a kind of more minimal. So I'm just going to kind of pop in a bit of an orange, because that's, if you look at this, my light source was kind of coming in from this direction. So it has highlights over here, highlights over here, highlights on this side. So that means the other side is going to have my shadows. So all of this part of my pumpkin is not really this color, but this is a darker kind of orange, which kind of indicates that it's going to be more in shadow once I put a brighter orange up top. So I also forgot to indicate where the little stem is. Actually, let me kind of do this so you guys can see what I'm doing. I'm going to just indicate the stem is kind of here-ish. Now, I'm going to also start using the corner of my brush because I know this is too big for me and I want to put in those details. And this still stops me from being able to put in a lot of details, but it kind of makes me go a little bit broader with my brush stroke. But I'm still just indicating little shadows.
Is there a world in which you would use like a wipe to wipe out the blue?
I can, yeah, absolutely. If you want to wipe out the blue, what you can do, here, let me get a different easy wiper because that one has cobalt all over it. So actually, you know what? For this, I am going to grab a glove just because I am going to be putting my hand in this paint. So again, if you are working with more of the kind of toxic pigments, make sure you use a glove. If you are using non-toxic pigments, it's less of a problem. And if you still don't want to have paint all over your hands, just wear gloves. It's not a big deal. But what I could do is wipe out kind of little highlight indications of where things are. See that? So I'm starting to just kind of pull out those highlights. Is this absolutely necessary? No, it's not. And then I could say like that's where the center of my flower is. Again, general shapes. I'm not trying to be precise with this. I'm just trying to like, it's in this sort of vicinity. I can get tighter with the things of like where I'm placing my paint later on. This is just squishing paint around and moving it, and there's nothing precious about this. It's just playing, really. That's all we're doing today. So I'm gonna just indicate a couple of like little lumps and bumps over here. There's my highlights on that pumpkin. And now you can see, even with just the orange kind of coming through and just a couple of those highlights, it's starting to look like you have light coming in from this side, and that there's almost like a dark shadow, but that blue is throwing you off a little bit, right? That's confusing. It's light, but it's the wrong color, and we'll fix that, so don't worry. You have another question?
Do you have to do an underpainting?
No. If you want to meticulously render out every single little thing and work on one item and then work on the other item and do it that way, you can do that. The issue with that is that it tends to be a problem with working harmoniously. Now, if you are just trying to copy this photo exactly, you can do that. You can work on getting all of these colors of this pumpkin perfectly down before you move on to the next pumpkin. You can do that. There's no wrong way to paint, really. The reason why I like to do all of the underpainting and then kind of work on this pumpkin and then jump over here and do this pumpkin and do this one, and kind of wherever I see the color that I have mixed, I'm gonna pop it in everywhere on the painting. The reason why I do that is because it allows me to have color harmony, and it kind of moves your eye around the painting. So it kind of makes it understandable, because this wasn't completely out of the tube. It's not a perfect vermilion. That's vermilion mixed with whatever blue I had on my brush at the time. So trying to color match that is not going to be super easy. It doesn't have to be precise in order for me to mix it again and make it make sense, but now I'm going to have to remember, oh, that's vermilion plus the blue plus the black, because it's actually cobalt blue plus black plus a vermilion. You see how it starts getting more complicated? This is just, I don't want to say my lazy version of doing it, but it's a lot easier if you get the color harmony this way. But again, if you want to do it the other way, there's no wrong answer. So I'm going to just, since I already started doing this and I already have the glove on, going to, there's the top of my, and for that little like scratch right there, I have the Easy Wiper on my finger, and I used just a little bit of my nail, kind of the corner of my nail, to get that sharp line. Is that necessary? No, but it helps me, because now I can tell that that's something that's moving in space, and the highlights on two different areas of the stem. But this is where I can also start indicating different facets of my pumpkin. Again, I'm only wiping out kind of the highlight areas. I'm not wiping out the whole thing. Like, I haven't touched any of those shadow areas. I'm only wiping out where the light is hitting it. Again, it might not be perfect, but that's okay. Alright, and then there's little indications of pumpkin. Yeah. Now with my flowers, I haven't really touched them. I know that like right here is the center of my flower, and right here is the center of my flower, and that's about all I'm going to do, because I don't want to really touch all those little tiny leaves and stuff, and that's too complicated, and I cannot be bothered to do all that. Now I will indicate that one little leaf that I did paint over, if you really want to, so that it doesn't get completely lost, but I can also kind of pop in a couple of the outside leaves just to kind of help me define the form, but I really don't want to go beyond that. Mostly because I can do that with my paintbrush. Right, so there we go. Just a couple little highlights just to make it kind of make sense. Now I might as well just leave the glove on. All right, so I'm back to this orange. I'm going to keep this in my flowers as well. Just because my flowers, if you do look at it, they do kind of have the similar orange kind of colors. Now, some of them get more red as opposed to this orange. And over here, it's almost like a deep purpley kind of in the center of those flowers. But I'm going to still just indicate a little bit of orange here and there. I'm not being perfect with it. I really don't want to be perfect with it. I want this to look like a painting, personally. And every time I do that, I'm coming over here and getting kind of almost, I don't want to say fresh paint, but more of that orangey color, because as you see me popping these in, if you watch this, I have more blue on my brush right there. So if I'm now mixing this in and I'm slightly changing the color, yes, but I'm still within that same kind of family. And if I find that this is still getting too dark and too blue, I'll add just a little bit of that vermilion back in and kind of bring it back. But I'll kind of tiptoe around that color. And same thing with this one. Just want to indicate that there is sort of orangey kind of tones in it. Am I going with the way that the flower petals are going? Not really. That will come later. Now, if you wanted to, you can. I'm not being that perfect with it. again, this is just squishing paint around. It's just for fun. Now this pumpkin, I'm gonna start drawing in the facets with the corner of my brush, just so I can kind of indicate that. Now, I'm gonna do that with probably ignoring the center part because I want to make sure that it all kind of goes to the same place and makes sense. So, almost like drawing a beach ball, right? Just drawing kind of the lines that kind of go around that pumpkin. Right? Alright, and then there's one sort of there. Now, again, the light's coming from this side, so I want to start indicating those shadows that are orange. It kind of goes, actually, that one's more that way, and then there's one here. That's not perfect, but that's okay, I can fix that. And then I'm just going to carve underneath that little stem. That might not be the perfect orange color for it, but I just want to indicate that that's not part of the pumpkin. Now, if you want to do that back pumpkin, I'm going to do just little dabs for each little, like, there's 3 little, well, I guess that's technically 4 little facets of the pumpkin, but really like 3 little blobs. That's a technical term, blob. Right, there's a pumpkin behind there. Now, I can define that more later on, but that's about all I'm going to do with that orange right there. Actually, and I take that back. I forgot my little green pumpkin here does have some orange in it, so I'm going to just indicate it's right there-ish, and it kind of almost comes down and touches that flower. But it's like a grungy pumpkin, so I might even like dab on a couple of like little grungy texture type things. Now I'm gonna actually try and leave that up there because if you guys, we might actually be able to see better with that side camera here if you guys get to see what I'm talking about with like dabbing it on. There we go. I think that's a better view. All right, so I'm gonna dab on just a little bit more. I think that's it. That's about all the orange I want on that right there. So I'm going to probably deepen this orangey color with like a bit more red kind of color. I want it more vibrant. And I do that by mixing in my vermilion with, which one is this? Which one is this? This is the quinacridone red. So you see that it's a lot more vibrant. And actually, if I even take that off and tilt this, you guys might be able to see it just a little bit better. See? So that was the color I was working with. This is a combination of the vermilion with the quinacridone red. So it's like a nice bright, almost like fire engine red kind of poppy kind of color. So I'm going to just pop that in just where it makes me happy. Kind of almost like a core shadow, but this is my lumpy and bumpy pumpkin. So I got to start kind of being aware of where those little lumps and bumps are. But right here is real dark. Right? Now, again, that's not the only place that I'm going to put that kind of funky red color. I'm going to pop it in. Actually, I need more because I don't want it to be desaturated with the blue that is mixing in. So I might have to mix more of that. Pop it in a little bit over here. And I'm, again, not doing anything complicated. I'm just squishing paint around. That's all we're doing. All right, now there's some funky reds in this flower right here, and it's really quite bright compared to the rest of it. Now this, as you can see, I am starting to go with the petals, just to kind of get an indication. Now, I'm not drawing every little thing here. I know there's a big chunk of that red right there, and that's why I'm going big chunk. But like where I have like little petals that kind of come up, I might do 1 or 2 of those. Again, just to indicate that that's kind of what it is, but not be so precise with it. And then I'm gonna go with this real funky purpley kind of color, because remember we have that purpley color in the flower. Now that one is the quinacridone magenta, so it's leans a lot more purple than the rest of our reds do. So this is really like a shadowy kind of red purple color, and you can absolutely indicate more shadows here. Now, if you want to make your pumpkin kind of curve back into space even further than it is now, start messing with your edges. You have wet paint behind that. If you start blending that edge and kind of almost making that hard edge disappear, it makes it appear more like it's turning back into space. And if it's not perfect, it's still going to look like a pumpkin. People know what pumpkins are. Now again, I'm going to take that same purple and pop that into the flower where I kind of see darker shades of that kind of coming in around the little flower petals. Because I can pop the bright yellowy colors, I can pop those on top. Same thing over here. Grab a little bit more of that quinacridone magenta. Oh, we are getting, is it really 6:19? Woo! See, time flies when you're having fun painting.
We started a little late, so you've got about 15 more minutes. But
Okay.
just FYI.
Yep, that's valid. All right, so now we're gonna start seeing me panic paint, which is still fine. It's not panicking, it's just popping colors in. Now again, I am still fighting with this blue, whereas like if you had started with the orangey kind of colors, it would have been a little bit easier. But
No fun.
it's no fun. So now I'm gonna go for those really bright kind of oranges that make this kind of work. I have that cadmium yellow. I almost said cadmium orange. It is a super bright, funky,
Lit up.
I know, that's why I was like, I love the 10 colors that they have in that set, but in order to paint pumpkins, I have to have this orange. You know, you can't not have it. So this is where I'm going to start having kind of those bright pumpkin-y moments, right? And I'm going to pop these in and almost obliterate that blue, right? Again, I'm using the corner of this brush instead of the flat side. I'm using the corner, I'm turning it sideways so to get a little bit of a thinner brush. Just brush control. And using it in a way that is a little bit more versatile on your brush. Just anywhere where you pop this in, it's going to start looking like you have light hitting your pumpkin because of that dark kind of red color that we have there already. And as I'm pulling it down into those colors, I'm kind of just lightly fluffing it into those colors. So it's not super mixing, but it's kind of integrating them together just enough to where it makes it not look like a hard edge. All right, so painting the edges of my pumpkin here. Now, where I have the light hitting my pumpkin, I want it to be a hard edge. All right, so same thing with the flowers. I'm gonna start painting if I can faster. Now, the center of the flower, I am going to start going in with this color, and I'm gonna start paying attention to the way that the little petals go. Again, if I use the edge of my brush, I can get a little bit of a thinner kind of brush mark. But I don't want to cover up all the red that I have there. That's kind of the those shadows kind of peeking through.
As you're changing towards lighter colors, is your paint getting thicker or is it just looking that way because it's brighter?
It is getting thicker and it is also brighter. That cadmium, this is why I added that to my palette here. It is a very strong color. That's why I wanted it, because I knew that if I was going to be using a blue or any other kind of color, this is really what's going to pop off the canvas and really make it look bright orange. But it's also why I really love these cadmium colors, because they can really, when you get them a little bit thicker, there's probably still a little bit of solvent in there because it's just on my brush, but there's not a ton. So it's getting closer to almost pure paint at this point, but it's still not 100% pure paint. Where I get like really thick pure paint is usually my highlights. And when I say thick pure paint, I mean thick. This is still going on relatively thin. I'm not brushing on a lot of thick dabs or anything. Again, I'm just dabbing it on just to kind of indicate that there are little petals and things. But that's it. And the center of this flower I think is going to get a lot brighter with that yellow as well. But I need to get these pumpkins over here. So I'm going to just do little brush strokes. Because again, I want the edges of where that light is hitting my pumpkin to be quite strong on the color and the edge quality. So if I start going back into space and getting a little bit more of a shadow color, then I want to kind of fluff it out with my brush again. And I'm going to actually paint over top of that stem, just because I, again, need to make sure that it all kind of goes to the right spot. And then over here, because I want to keep this kind of back in space just a little bit, I'm going to kind of keep the colors a little bit darker. So not as bright as those right there. Then I also need to kind of fluff the shadows just a little bit. Okay. Now, I got this one right here, and there's a pumpkin. It's an indication of a pumpkin. So, we need to work on this guy and the background. And I think we're going to be close to done. Alright, now I do need to get a lot of this paint off my brush. That is a sound, I'm sorry, that is a squeaky sound. So I'm just kind of knocking a lot of this paint off on my Easy Wiper rag. Again, I'm making sure that it's not touching me at all. I'm pretty aware of where my brushes go. If you are not that careful, use gloves. Especially when using those cadmiums. Alright, so now I'm going to start getting a little bit more yellow. Now I'm not going to completely take that away because I might need a couple of those colors to kind of mix in, but I really need to work on this guy. So I'm going to take that Naples yellow. And I'm going to kind of just, almost looks green. Because I mean, it does have the cobalt on it as well. But I just want to indicate where the light's hitting it. That was a little bit of a wild brush stroke there. It happens. It's okay. I can fix that.
You do have two other smaller brushes.
I know I have two other small brushes, and I am the world's worst at changing my brushes. Who out there is terrible at changing your brushes? Please tell me in the comments that I'm not alone. I'm still using the big one. I don't want to noodle with all the little details. I just want to kind of indicate. And honestly, if I had used my smaller brush, I might be able to get those details a little bit better. But I don't want to. I want to get the kind of wild brush strokes here. Now, I know right here on the edge of this pumpkin, the flower petals go over top of that. Again, I can paint that in later because painting around it, it's not my favorite. Now I'm going to take a little bit more of this white and I'm going to kind of jump ahead. I usually don't do this until later, but I need to tone that yellow down. Now, again, I'm only hitting where the highlights are. Now this kind of color, I am going to take a little bit of that just barely cobalt kind of color and mix it in. Got just whatever's left on my palette here. Mix it in for a cute little green. Because the shadows of this is still pretty light. They're more blue. And I think that's still not quite dark enough. But you know what? If I take a little bit of that transparent yellow, there we go. Knock it down a little bit. Maybe a little bit of this. Ooh, that was too much. That was too much. You ever do that? I do that all the time. Oh, actually, ice blue. I always forget the ice blue is on my palette. We're gonna mix that in. So now we made mud. Almost a very similar color to the gray that's my palette.
If only that was the challenge.
Color, match your palette. It's fine. But I still do love this color. And again, I'm just gonna kind of pop it in. I can fix my highlights in a minute. That's all right. Right. And then this color, all right, I'm gonna do it. I'm gonna switch my brushes because I do like this color for the stems. Now I can paint this on top of that orange. There we go, little stem. All right, now this one is sort of over here. Now, if you notice that you put a brush stroke down and it just blends it in, get a little bit more paint on your brush. I usually do that by like keeping it, you go back and forth like this because it is a flat brush. I'm making it this kind of sharpen, and then I almost take it like a scoop and I dig in, and then I get a little bit of it on my brush, and it gets a little bit more of a bold kind of brush stroke. All right, now this one is over here. Again, I'm just repeating this color around because color harmony. It all makes sense when you put it all together. Now, I think I do need more of a green for transition here. All right. Now, how are we doing on questions? Does anybody have any questions about the whole process? Why I'm doing something?
Agreed with you, but she also forgets to change her brushes. And then Debbie just said, truly enjoying this, which I think we're all just like watching it all.
Now, I can actually look up and see this stands out like a sore thumb, doesn't it? Because it just pops right off there. The reason why is because I added a bunch of white and a bunch of this really bright color, and it is nowhere else on my palette or on my painting. So I need to kind of move this around. And also, I did not respond to that. Thank you, by the way. Wow, my brain just kind of skipped ahead. Thank you for that. I'm glad I'm not alone in the brush changing, and I'm glad you guys are enjoying watching this. It's fun to paint. It really brings me joy. So again, I'm just kind of working my way around my palette here, and I grabbed a little bit of that quinacridone red kind of, I think that was quinacridone magenta mixed with all this. Grab that, mixed it in with this kind of color, and I'm going to kind of pop it down here on my stem just to kind of knock some of those stem colors down, and kind of bring this color around. It's like a really desaturated, almost coral kind of pinky color. I don't know. It's mud. We made mud, guys, but I'm gonna move this around my painting and kind of make it make sense. Is there this color on this pumpkin? No, but it kind of helps it kind of tone down a little bit. All right, I like it. I think it works. All right, so I'm just gonna indicate a couple more here. Kind of just tones those facets down just a little bit. All right, now I think I need to kind of do something with this funky yellowy kind of color. If I pop that in here, and then here, again, I'm not trying to be perfect. I'm just indicating where lights are, you know. It's a little bit on the top of that stem. Again, I have my reference photo over here. I'm just looking at it. Anywhere where there's light. And that's really gonna help you, is have your reference photo right near you while you're working and keep referring back to it. I mean, don't paint what you think you saw. Look back at it and see if it's really there. What did I do with this pumpkin over here? That's all right. Now, just gonna pop a couple of bumpy highlights over here. Now, I need to make a green. I need to make a green before I run out of time. I'm gonna get a little bit more like cobalt because this is my only blue. Back on my palette. Well, again, I have ice blue, but ice blue is so light that I almost consider it like a white. But when you take cobalt blue and that cadmium yellow, you get a funky green. And we're gonna pop that in. Actually, I need to tone that down just a little bit because that is a really, really, really vibrant green. Almost lime green. Like, it's not quite right. Not for my dingy pumpkins, you know? Alright. I'm just indicating, oop, that is a little bit, I just put that down and I realized that's too bright. So I'm going to take another brush that's clean and it doesn't have anything on it, and I'm just going to kind of knock that down just a little bit because that is a bit too much. Alright, so funky green, got to pop in these little nodules. And if I take a little bit of black, because black and yellow make green, it makes a little bit more of a naturalistic green, kind of almost olivey. And I can indicate that I got nodules on this pumpkin. These pumpkin freckles?
I'm not sure you're going to say that.
Nodules. I mean, it has bumps. It has growths.
Sometimes it's not until you say something out loud that I realize I don't like it.
Yeah, that's valid. I mean, I don't like it either, but it has bumpies. And I need to like maybe bring this green elsewhere. Now, I do need to also indicate that there is greenery in the background. I'm just going to very lightly scrub it in because I don't want to paint every little thing. I'm just scrubbies, little swirlies and scrubs. And if you want to say that there's a leaf there, you can just do a little leaf shape kind of thing. I know that there are purple flowers that kind of pop in here that we have to put in. Brush stroke there. All right. And we should probably deepen this color just a little bit. Alright, because this is a lot darker, but it's a lot more almost bluer, kind of a... Again, this is the level of like, you're just trying to find colors. You're not really making them perfect. You're just kind of trying to see if that works, and if it doesn't work, you can do something different. And I'm just going to indicate that there's a little bit of a leaf that comes out here. And again, I have that old green on my brush down here. because I have like the darker green at the top, the lighter green at the bottom, because I'm not really cleaning my brush. So a little bit just came off on the brush here, and I like it, so I'm just going to try my best not to touch that. Just little indications. All right, now there's some kind of green here-ish, right? Again, I have a green, because there's two little flowers down here. There's some kind of a leaf situation here. Again, I'm not trying to make it perfect or paint every little detail. Now, I need a brown because I need to kind of tone this down. So I'm going to take that, what is that, that transparent red oxide, and mix that into my green mixture here, because red and green are opposite on the color wheel. You mix them together, you make brown. So I'm just going to indicate there's brown things happening in the background here. Leaves or sticks, and if you want to do just like really quick, long brush strokes like that, because it could be the pine needles that are back there. I don't know. But I'm I also need to knock that down just a little bit. Just to kind of indicate there's greenery. It's not a shrubbery, it's greenery. Sorry, I went Monty Python there. I'm not sorry about that. All right, and then down here, get a little bit more of that red oxide and kind of just indicate in that dark kind of area, but I still want to keep the value of that dark. And we're going to kind of start doing those long brush strokes, because again, pine needles are very long, kind of linear things, but you have to just kind of change your brush strokes every now and then to be different directions. And I don't think I want to paint in the leaves this time. I just want to kind of indicate, again, I have the ability to edit it out. I still have a little bit of green there for my flowers. And if I don't want it to be really all that in focus, I just very lightly fluff brush, kind of blend it out just a little bit, and it kind of just blends out in space. Now, I do want to have a little bit of an indication that there's light and everything here, so I'm going to take that Naples yellow, mix it in, get a little bit of a lighter version. Actually a little bit more there. All right, so light brush strokes, just kind of to indicate there's light hitting something that's right here. What it is, I don't know. But this, because I'm putting a lighter version here, knocks the background into space. Again, if you had more of an orange background, it works a little bit more with you. And you can see here, I actually added in a little bit of blue, and still had the desaturated browns. Now I'm going to actually add in white, just to kind of make it a little bit chalkier almost, because a lot of things in nature are quite desaturated. Same thing, just layers, and nothing's dry, so I might add little chunks of stuff here and there, like, I don't know what, there's maybe an indication of an acorn there. Just a little bit here. And then I think before everyone kills me, because I'm going to be going overtime, I'm going to add just a couple purple flowers, and I'm going to show you my favorite purple flower mix. And this is not completely done, but for the rest of the painting I would still approach it the exact same way. I would just be adding in, I would slowly go from the shadows to the highlights, and I'm going to add in that bright kind of yellow that kind of is here, and pop that into, if I do a little bit, I'll show you a little bit of an example. So I might add in with my smaller brush, which again, if I keep going back to this, I'm going to have this shift eventually, so I might have to keep mixing that kind of color. And then for the center of my flower, again, I just need to do that. Just kind of keep pulling my brush strokes into that center. And then if I have a couple of these brush strokes, just hitting just the petals here and there, kind of indicates. And as every brush stroke that I make, it's just going to shift the color slightly because it's all still wet. Now there is, yeah, the purple. I gotta make purple flowers. You guys are gonna kill me. They're not looking. They're not looking. Gotta do highlights. They're not looking. Shh. Okay. All right, purple. We need to do the purple. This is for Peyton. Purple.
Purple. And you're painting bubbles.
All right, I am painting bubbles. That's Katie's daughter calls pumpkins bubbles, and she likes to say the word purple. Okay, so I have my cobalt teal, and I have my quinacridone magenta, and this is my favorite purple to mix. It is so vibrant, and it makes me so happy. So, just to indicate little purple flowers, again, I don't want it to be thinned down at all. I'm just going to do little blobs here and there, just brush strokes, that's all it is. There's one over here that's kind of blurred out, not blurred out, words. I can say words, I swear. All right, now this is all the same color purple. And if I vary my purple and give it highlights, you'll start seeing light hit the purple flowers, yes.
What colors were those again? I heard quinacridone magenta.
Quinacridone, well, you tell me, what do you think I mixed quinacridone magenta with?
Blue.
The only blue on my palette. It's the cobalt.
The cobalt teal.
I told you they weren't watching.
That ivory black looks like a dark blue from where I am.
It does look like a dark blue, yeah.
I forgot.
That's okay. I will allow that one. It's, no. Color mixing is so much fun if you play around with it. And it's, all this is just fiddling around with color and seeing which one works. And if it doesn't work, shift it a little bit and see if that works. And if it doesn't work, then just keep playing. And that's all we're doing is just squishing paint around. Now I'm adding a little bit of that ice blue to that purple just for a couple little highlights. And this one is quite highlighted. Again, I can go back in and add a little stem here. Again, my light source is coming from this way, so I want to make sure that the darker purple stays on that side of my lighter purple. And it makes sense where it's hitting kind of the flower. Right? Something like that? Yeah. And I mean, I would definitely come in and deepen the shadows of this pumpkin to kind of define it just a little bit more out of that blue. But I mean, I think this is a pretty fun painting for, you know, an hour of squish and paint around. That's it. That's all it is. So I really hope you guys enjoyed this show. I really hope you get a chance to do this and to just play around with the pumpkins.
Tag us.
Oh yes, definitely tag us. I would love to see what you guys paint. Even if you don't put it in the Facebook Live group, tag us on Instagram, social media. It's the JerrysArtarama. Just at JerrysArtarama.
JerrysArtarama.
There we go. Could not remember for a second there. we have a lot of Jerry's Artarama accounts. It's at Jerry's Artarama is just our corporate here. Because I think each store has their own version, like Jerry's Artarama of Nashville. So there's just at Jerry's Artarama is ours. So if you do paint the pumpkins, I would love to see it. I would just be so thrilled to see you guys just having fun with this process. It's just a very low key, no stress, just play. And if you don't love it, tomorrow you can paint over top of it and no worries. It's just a fun way of celebrating fall. And Mr. Wrinkles. He still has a fabulous stem, guys. Can we a round of applause for Mr. Wrinkles? He is dying. Sorry, I got Amanda with that one. Anyway, I hope you guys enjoyed the show. I hope you get to try this, and no matter if you use the acrylics or anything, just let us know and tag us with it. And I will see you guys a couple shows from now. But next week, though, Mott is going to be on doing Introduction to Perspective Drawing, which I'm so thrilled for. It's really, really cool to see Mott teach the perspective. There was a lot of aha moments when we were talking about it earlier. So it's going to be a really good show. Make sure you tune in next week on Facebook or YouTube. We'll be live. And I will see you guys later. Bye!